Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Sit Down Hawaii podcast. I'm Josh Duhilansud, your host. And listen, it is our mission to helping people in Hawaii talk about the things that we need to talk about. And I'm really excited for today's guest. When we were thinking about Sit Down Hawaii, we were thinking about the type of people, the type of content that we wanted to have conversations around. And I knew, right off the bat, we needed to talk to someone about law enforcement. I've seen so many things on social media from, massive thoughts on deportation and drugs and violence and guns and all of this stuff. And it got me to think, I wonder what it feels like, what it sounds like to be on the other end. I'm not a police officer. And so when we started to do some research, our next guest, it was such a pleasure, and it was so easy to talk to this police officer, this chief. And so we're really, really excited. I really want you to pay attention, leave those comments, and again, share this with anybody that you know. Today's guest is Chief Ben, I want to say this right, Chief Benjamin Moszkowicz.
Oh, you nailed Moszkowicz. Benjamin is only my mother. Only my mother calls me Benjamin, and only when I'm in trouble. But you nailed the hard part, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, let's try it again. Chief Ben Moszkowicz.
There you go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chief Ben, for being here. Chief Ben has been, he's from Big Island. So he's the chief of police out in Big Island, and I thought it was super unique to get your take on what's going on. And listen, if you're on Oahu, share this with somebody from Big Island because we really want to get into it. Also, I think it's unique and interesting because although we're from Oahu, there's a lot of things that branch through all islands. And I think that you're doing some phenomenal things that I kind of want to see happening all over the place. Not saying that Oahu or Honolulu is doing bad or anything like that. But as we were talking, as I got to know you, I'm like, wow, I really like the approach. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks, Josh. I appreciate the opportunity. Like we were talking, it's the conversation that's the magic. It lets people kind of see things maybe from a slightly different perspective than they're used to. And it gets to, personalize people to the point where we can have a rational conversation.
Yeah. I think you showing up with your Aloha shirt was like, oh, this guy is, we can talk story.
Absolutely.
I want to start kind of from the beginning. You don't just become chief. It doesn't happen that way. And we did some extensive research on you. And let's start from the beginning. Why did you first become a police officer, and where did you start?
I did not want to be a police officer growing up. I was not one to play cops and robbers with my brother. That wasn't in my thought process. I want to be a physical therapist.
Wow.
Yeah. And then now here we are. There's a couple steps in between. So I was, my dad was in the Navy. So I got to grow up all around the world. I was going to high school in Europe. Really amazing experience. I finished high school and I moved back to the mainland to go to college. And I was in this physical therapy program. And one of the steps that you needed to complete in this physical therapy program was you had to complete an internship. You had to do an inpatient and outpatient internship. And the classes I thought were very interesting. Like I could see myself doing this as a career. Yeah. And then I went out and did the internships and I absolutely hated it. It was horrible. I mean, God bless those of you who have, settled on physical therapy. It wasn't for me. It wasn't what I thought it was. This was a very, kind of tumultuous time in my life. I didn't know, now what am I going to do? I got all half of this college credit is done. What do I do? And at the time, I was working at a drugstore, like a Long's, in the office. And we used to have an officer who'd come in on the weekends, Friday, Saturday night, more special duty kind of deal. Yeah. And I got to talking, and he said, "Hey, have you ever considered, coming and doing a ride along? Maybe you might be interested." Oh. And so I went out and I rode along one night in a police car in Toledo, Ohio. Wow. And that was it. The hook was in. I was helpless to choose any other career. I loved it. Wow. It was very interesting. Every day is different. You get to meet all kinds of people. You never know what you're going to do when you come to work. Yeah. And there's a real opportunity to interact with the community in a way that you just wouldn't expect.
Wow. So the police officer, he just reached out to you.
Yep.
Did you talk to him before, or was there like some sort of common thing? That's interesting.
No, I knew him from him coming in the store on the weekends, and we would talk about other things in the world. And I must have mentioned something about I don't know what I'm going to do, because he might ask about my internship. I said, it's not what I. And he saw the opening. Man, he's a genius recruiter. He got me in the door, and for a ride along, I got into a police car for the first time at 20 years old. And of course, there's 2 officers in Toledo, so I had to sit in the back, which I thought, okay, this is a little weird. It blew my mind. There's radios in police cars. Oh my gosh, I would have never thought of it. There's like a car stereo in there. This is a long time ago. I was very new to the world, but just driving around with them and then, talking to me about the job and answering questions. It really personalized them. And I got to share that experience, and we went out to, we stopped and had dinner and talked about the job. And I was hooked. I switched immediately from physical therapy into a law enforcement track. And then ironically, my parents called in the winter when I was still 20. I just made this decision, okay, I'm going to do law enforcement. They called and told me, okay, our next duty station is in Hawaii. And I was, scraping my car out from underneath the ice in Northwest Ohio. And I said, let's roll. It's time for a new start. So I ended up here on Oahu, and I finished my degree at UH West Oahu, applied to the Honolulu Police Department. And my career has taken off from there.
So you moved from the mainland to Oahu. And then, it just seems like you jumped right into law enforcement. What was that change? I mean, I can only imagine. Where were you living first off when you came to Oahu?
So when we first moved to Oahu, we got a house all the way up on the North Shore by Keiki Beach, past Haleiwa. And I worked as I applied. This is maybe 1997. The job market is very tight. I put my application in everywhere, from Wahiawa to Laie. Every single store that I could find, I put an application. The only place that called me back was McDonald's in Haleiwa. So I said, right on, let's go.
Perfect.
So I learned everything about McDonald's. As I finished my degree, I worked my way up. I was a store manager of the Haleiwa McDonald's.
No way.
Yeah, for real. And then, McDonald's is an interesting employer. One of their core values is customer service, right? It's interacting with communities, interacting with people who visit the store, and finding ways to, satisfy them. And that, to me, that ties back to what I kind of wanted to do, I think, in physical therapy, was help people to improve and improve their condition. And then I think that all kind of ties back into law enforcement. It's not, for me, so much, how many people can we arrest or how many people can we cite, but what can we do in the community to help people solve problems, to make them feel safer and to be safer?
Yeah, we'll get, I think, a lot into that, but I think it's worth repeating and saying that the goal isn't to make a number, to get all these arrests, to bring pain and harm. The goal is to bring safety and security, and I love that. So from McDonald's so I guess you went studying, and then you jumped over to the academy, or like how did that work?
Yep, I applied to the Honolulu Police Academy. It seemed like the logical next step. I had finished my bachelor's degree at UH West Oahu. It seemed like the start of a career. The job market was still pretty tight. This is summer of 2000. I graduated in June, and then I started at the police department out in Waipahu at the Training Academy in August of 2000. So almost 25 years ago. Wow. Pretty close.
I don't know the answer to this, so you just ask. I mean, I'm going to ask it. Does all police officers need to have a bachelor's? Like, how does that work?
No, not at all. So statewide, the minimum education requirement for to entry into law enforcement career is a GED. So you really don't even need a high school diploma. Wow. That's all the position descriptions are written. Now, in 2000, when I came in, it was a little bit more competitive. We would have maybe 40 or 50 people that were eligible, and I don't know that they were hiring all 40 or 50, so the degree may have given me a leg up. At this point, with the department so short, we're certainly still looking for right people. We don't want to take 6s and 7s out of 10. We want 8s, 9s, and 10s. Yeah. But the opportunity is different now to get into the career field, more open probably than maybe when I came in 2000. So I think that degree probably helped me, but at the same time, no need. In fact, a lot of the departments have tuition reimbursement. So you come in without a degree, and we'll help you to get a degree along the way.
Wow, how does that work? I've never thought of that. So if you're watching this and you're thinking of different careers, how does that work? You could maybe study to become a police officer, and then tuition reimbursement and all that works. Is there like a program through that, or is that kind of offered to all police officers?
So every county is a little bit different. The program in Honolulu is you apply to take a class. The class has to be related to your job somehow, and then you get approval. And once you take the class, then they'll reimburse you for the tuition. Hawaii County is a little bit different. We actually have two programs. There's a county program, which basically says, look, you go out to any kind of college or professional trade school or whatever, and you complete the class, and then you send us the receipt, and the county will reimburse you up to a certain amount.
Gotcha.
And then the police department, we have our own program that kind of sits on top of that.
Wow.
So if you max out the county program, then we will reimburse you as well for tuition, as long as that class is somehow related back to your job.
Of course.
Which, as a police officer, anything in the psychology, sociology, any kind of those realms is all tied back to police work and the things that we do. So
Wow, that's really interesting. I don't think I've ever thought of it as a career step to also gain education, and that's really interesting. Okay, so you're in the academy. I'm sure you've passed with flying colors.
I broke my ankle.
You broke your ankle?
Yeah, I broke my ankle. Okay. So I had to start again in December.
Okay, so
literally
you
broke my
hobbled
ankle.
through.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? Was it just during training?
I was in the gym. We're doing push-ups and sit-ups, and there was a wet, sweaty spot on the floor, and we were doing jumping jacks, and my ankle
We got to
went
change
one
that
way.
story. No. You were chasing
broke my ankle.
someone,
No.
and you jumped the fence.
I
The
cannot
dog
tell a
bit your
lie.
ankle.
So the cool thing is, right, there's another class that starts in a couple months. So I started again in December, and then I graduated in June of 2001.
That's good. I think back of a few police officer friends of mine, maybe went to high school or even out of high school, and something changes, something happens because I have a few friends in my mind. I'm like, wow, I see you now. I see the way you carry yourself. Just can you explain a little bit of like what that does to someone? I always think of like basic training. They come out, I'm like, wow, your hair's definitely different and you're different. But what does that look like for someone? What are the values that you
We need a whole nother episode for this.
It's a long one.
Oh my gosh. But so basically what it boils down to is this. So we take, when I think about our training academy and what we do with people who are recruits, right? They come in, they've never been police officers before. They've worked all kinds of places. They have all different life experiences. We have to prepare them in 6 months in a classroom for literally anything that could happen on day one when they're out in the next phase. So the first phase, they're in the classroom for 6 months. Then they go out and they're riding with a veteran officer, right? So they're with somebody who's helping them make the right decision and guide them through the paperwork and the process.
Right.
But they still need to be able to defend themselves and protect the community on day one in that phase.
Wow.
So some of what the academy is designed to do is it's designed to help you to take fear and anxiety and frustration and all those things that would keep you from making the right decision in that split second and to help you compartmentalize it, right? So there is, and it's certainly not as much as it was 25 years ago. It's certainly not anything like boot camp, but there is a paramilitary structure to it. So we have to teach the recruits, what the laws are and how they apply and what the use of force is and how to use all these tools and tactics and tricks. We also have to teach them how to keep themselves under control in stressful situations.
Yeah.
So part of it, I think, is that. Because that once that switch kind of flips in your head and you learn to kind of compartmentalize the anxiety or the frustration or the fear, and it is fear in some of these situations, you got to put that on the side and deal with business to make things safe. But what happens is, and this is where we can go way off the deep end for hours and hours, is once people get out on the road, right, and they're going to these cases and they're having these experiences and they're witnessing people taking their last breath and they're going, it gets real deep real fast. I'm telling you, you have to go tell a loved one that their son or daughter or mother or father has passed away. Those things we teach officers to put it on the side and deal with the situation. But what we have historically not been very good at all is helping them to unpack those things after. Yeah, and so they build up. We just bury them and we bury them and we bury them. And then at the end of your career, 25, 30, 35 years, we go, okay, congratulations. Here's the proverbial gold watch and the retirement and off you go. And then all of a sudden you're still left with all this stuff. Yeah. So it's that when you talk about a change in how you perceive someone who you've known for a long time and you go, wow, you look different, you act much more professionally. That's probably true. And that's probably all based on training and experience and them learning to compartmentalize and put those things on the side. And we're not all like this, okay? Some of us have healthy outlets, right? We have kids, we coach kids sports, we go to church, we have all these different ways that we can help to unpack all that trauma, but some of us don't. So that when you look at, the grizzled old officer who comes up and talks to you in a certain very mean, gruff way, it's not because they woke up in the morning saying, hey, I think I'll just go be rude to people today, right? That's in nobody's wheelhouse. Nobody wants that. But that's I think, an artifact of all this pent up stored trauma that were just kind of just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, right? And get through the day and then repeat and repeat and repeat for 25 or 30 years. So,
Yeah, I saw a podcast. Sean Ryan, he was talking to a police officer, and he retired. And he was talking about how only then he was able to start processing some of the things that he's seen, was a part of, loss of life, and you see some pretty intense things.
it changes you.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that feels like and what the toll is. So you go. Oh wait,
Sorry, I didn't mean to break it down.
No, this is great. No, I think that's important because again, you're human.
Yeah, and there is hope too, right? So one of the things that our department has done, we are literally now days away from hiring a public safety counselor. So this person basically has a therapist or counseling type degree. They have experience in the field, and they're going to work for the police department, providing counseling services to department employees and their families, free of charge, and totally off the books in terms of, hey, we don't have to worry, Officer, Ben doesn't have to worry that the chief's going to find out that he's having problems in his marriage, or he's, frustrated with his kids about something. It's a totally off-book counseling, free of charge service that we're going to provide the department members and their families. And I'm hoping that starts to become a tradition, and that we build a little heritage around that, so that it becomes less about, hey, I'm struggling and I don't want to say anything because I have to maintain this exterior, because the police department is a very macho place, right? Historically, it becomes less about that and more, hey, I'm struggling and I need some help, and I can get the help, and then that'll get me back to being productive. And what does that do, right? It flips the script on that grizzled officer who's just very frustrated and gruff, and now you're going to get the same officer who hopefully is able to communicate a little more effectively, provide better customer service, which then turns your experience around, right? It builds trust, it builds community satisfaction.
That's huge. I mean, it's just very, very huge. I can only imagine, I get frustrated in traffic. So what does it look like with people yelling at me all the time? Okay, I got to ask this question.
Sure.
Because it just hit me. When you're going through the training, you get pepper sprayed, you get shot with what is that?
The taser.
Taser.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just part of it. This might be weird, but I kind of want to just go through it. That
you bring your show on the road, brother, and we'll put you through a day or two at the academy. Yeah.
Okay, let me pray on that.
Set it up.
I've always kind of I've seen it. I know in training military they do it, just so that way you know what it is when you're administering.
You got to know what the effects are.
Yeah,
because I'll tell you, if somebody gets my pepper spray away from me, I know what's going to happen if they're able to dose me in the face, and I know how it's going to incapacitate.
I've heard multiple stories that's worse to get pepper sprayed than it was to get a taser.
I agree.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy throat, right? Hard to breathe.
And the thing with the taser is, after 5 seconds, it goes away. It stops. Yes, there might be some lingering body aches or pain, but that OC or pepper spray, it just reactivates when you shower. It all comes back.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I got hit. Well, not personally, but I was, we were out and something happened down the road, and it was like through the wind. And I got just a little, and I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, this sucks. I can't imagine it in my face, right? Okay. So you go to training, and then now you're a police officer. Where do you go from there? What was your first station?
So my timeline-wise, you go into FTO, and we're with a veteran officer for a couple weeks at a time. The beginning of my second phase of FTO is September 11th, 2001.
Oh my gosh.
I'm assigned to Waikiki. It's my first day.
Always Waikiki, right?
The day shift, and there is nothing. Nothing is going on. The streets are empty. It was a very surreal time. Just to set your mindset of when we're talking about. I finished field training, and my first assignment was right here in Kalihi. So I worked in Kalihi District for about 3 or 4 years, and then I worked mostly at night. I got tied into a lot of DUI enforcement, alcohol and drug impaired driving, education, enforcement, stuff like that. I transferred over to the traffic division. And then from there, the traffic division is like my home base of where I spend the rest of my career. Every time I get promoted, I get sent away somewhere, and then I end up back. So I was in the traffic division as an officer, as a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, and a major. Oh, wow. Every rank I had, I was there in some capacity. So traffic was kind of my home base.
I don't want to assume that everybody knows, and I don't know everything, but explain the difference in the different like traffic division?
Yeah, different assignments. Sure. So the island here and the island in the Big Island, it's the same thing. We're divided up into different geographical districts and patrol officers who are assigned to that district. Like if you're assigned to the South Hilo Patrol District, every day you get a beat. That's a specific number of blocks or square miles, or in the Big Island, it's a much bigger area. Right. And then that's your responsibility for the day, is that particular beat.
Oh, wow.
And then the next day you come back to work in the same district. You might have the same beat, you might have a different beat, but your district becomes like your area where you're working. Right. So on Oahu, there are 8 patrol districts. Kalihi is where I worked, was everything from Red Hill all the way to Pali Highway. So that kind of chunk there in the middle was District 5, that's Kalihi. And yeah, that's where you work. So there are a lot of other opportunities or different career paths in the police department. So a patrol officer, basically their job, if I was working in Kalihi and patrol, my job is to answer calls for service. Someone calls 911, the dispatcher calls me, I go to that case, handle the case, and go on to the next case. And in between, do traffic enforcement, address neighborhood concerns, whatever. Right. There are other career paths as well, though. So for example, in the Big Island, we have 2 traffic enforcement units, one in East Hawaii and Hilo, one in West Hawaii and Kona. And in Honolulu, they have a whole division of traffic people. So this is the officers on solo bikes, the motorcycle cops, the officers who are working DUI enforcement at night, the officers who come out and do reconstruction investigations after fatal or critical crashes. Those folks all work for one division in Honolulu, and that's the traffic division. So in addition to traffic, there's all kinds of other places. There's criminal investigations. So that's typically detectives who look into serious crimes and kind of take these complicated investigations and run with them, as opposed to a patrol officer who takes the report and then passes it to the detective. There's all kinds of other things you can do. There's narcotics and vice type investigations. We have a juvenile aid section, which investigates all kind of domestic violence and juvenile crimes.
Ooh, that's a special person.
There's records and identification. There's communications. So the sworn officers supervise the dispatchers. There's human resources, information technology. In Honolulu, I think there's 20 or so different divisions. Right. On the Big Island, we have probably closer to 12 or 13, just because we're a little bit smaller in the number of people. But there's a lot of opportunity for different career advancement and career progression. You're not necessarily in a career as a police officer stuck in one place, working in the same place for 25 years. Right.
Yeah. It seems like there's, and that's a common thing to go. Through your history, your personal history, it seems like you've kind of gone all over, it seems. Okay, so that's awesome. So you spent time in Kalihi, and then from Kalihi, that just kind of blossomed into, maybe we'll just fast track. How did you become chief? What
yeah, so I worked my way up through the ranks. I worked on, when we had the APEC conference in Hawaii, I helped to plan that. Nice. I worked as a lieutenant out in Kapolei and Waianae, and I worked as a lieutenant in traffic. I got promoted to captain around the time that Susan Ballard came in to be the chief. Nice. And I had it kind of in my mind that I wanted to take that step and be a police chief somewhere in the next 3, 4, 5 years. Then when Chief Ballard went out, the timing was I had completed my master's degree. I got my master's at University of San Diego in law enforcement and public safety leadership. That's exactly, leading a public safety department. I was able to attend the FBI National Academy, which is like a 10-week in-person thing at Quantico. Super cool. Lots of great experiences. And so I applied here. I went through the process, and the police commission selected Chief Logan to be the chief. And then shortly thereafter, the job on the Big Island opened up. And I did a lot of soul searching and talked to my family and decided, I think I want to give it a try. And I applied to be the chief on the Big Island. Until the day they called my name, would have bet you dollars to donuts that I was not going to get picked. Yeah. I don't have a lot of connection to the Big Island. My wife's parents kind of live on the Big Island, but that's it. So I've been to visit a couple times, at Thanksgiving or whatever, but all the other candidates had ties back to the Big Island. But for whatever reason, the police commission, I guess, kind of jived with what I thought, and I got selected. So the last 2 years have been an exciting adventure. Yeah,
I can only imagine. So we've spent a lot of time here on Oahu, 2 years now, Big Island. What are some of the easy, apparently, like, hey, this is a big difference, or some similarities? We can go that way as well. But what are some of the things that you're like, wow, this hit me quick?
We were talking about traffic and how my whole career surrounded traffic, and I had no idea of how bad it is here, traffic-wise. Again, I get it. I lived here for a long time. but I just never realized until I left. And then now I come back for the day for a meeting or 2 or 3 days for a conference or to visit, friends and family. And the traffic here is it blows my mind. And what I've started to notice is that I think the traffic causes people to be more anxious and have a little bit more frustration when they deal with each other. And then that, it feeds. It's a feedback cycle. So the more anxious or frustrated I am when I'm talking to you, the more you're going to give that back to me, and the more I'm going to give it back to you, and it just escalates. I think a lot of it surrounds that traffic piece, and the cost of living here is the other thing. It's so much higher. I went from a little humble brag moment. I went from being a major in Honolulu. I was living in Kaimuki. I was renting a house that I could never afford to buy with my family. And I left that situation. I moved to the Big Island, where in 1 year, I took a pay cut, by the way, very slight, but a pay cut to go be the chief on the Big Island. Within a year, I had bought one house, bought a second house, and rented out the first house. Wow. So for a slightly lower income, the dollar just goes so much further, cost of living wise, on the neighbor islands, especially in Hilo on the Big Island. So
I know
those are the big differences.
Those are the conversations everyone's having. It's very expensive to live in Oahu.
The similarities are kind of cool too, though, right? Yeah. So I would take, I lived here, and we're talking, I lived here for 25, 26 years before I moved to the Big Island. And I thought I had a very good sense of what, local culture is and the aloha spirit is. Yeah. And I've become a huge proponent of those things and try to center my life around those tenets. And then I moved to the Big Island, and I realized that it's the same, but it's like the volume is turned up a little bit there. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit more. Everything is a little bit more pono there. Yeah. Everybody is a little bit more just aloha in them, in the way that they talk to each other and converse and even deal with each other. I'll give you a concrete example. So as a chief, one of the really cool things that I get to do is I get feedback from the community about their interactions with officers, right? And here I was in traffic for a long time, and I would get monthly at least letters, and they were probably more what you're laughing because you think what they're going to be, right? Like, officer so and so pulled me over. He was very rude. Yeah. I wasn't speeding. He's a big liar. And so
he's
now,
a big liar.
Well, I don't know. Not quoting exact. I'm trying to paraphrase here for time. On the Big Island, I promise you, in the last month, I've gotten 3 separate letters from 3 separate people who all said basically the same thing about 3 different officers. The officer pulled me over. He was very courteous and kind, or in one case, she. I'm really sorry. I paid my ticket already, so I'm not trying to get out of anything. I wanted to let you know that the way the officer took their time and explained to me, it was very professional. I never got any of those here. Really? Never, ever. So it's a similarity, but it's a difference. But it's, I don't know, people there they're just more, I don't know, it's more aloha.
Yeah, Big Island is a lot more connected too. We kind of talked about that. Oahu clearly has a lot more people coming in from all over the place. And so I think that might have, something to do with it. I don't want to blow over this because you kind of said, I just want to go back. When you applied to be a chief, they were jiving with what you were saying. I just kind of want to get a thought around what principle or what idea or what was it that maybe, made sense to them?
Was different okay. Maybe. Well, both. I'll give you both. So I think when I went through the process here, I was very, I was checking a lot of boxes, I think, in how I acted and interacted with people. And I was trying to fill the role that I thought, people expected a police chief to be, and how they would maybe expect a police chief to ask. Because the substance in my answers between one island and the other were essentially the same. The things that I believe didn't change from here to there. Right. One of the big things that changed when I got there was I just decided, look, it's not a popularity contest. I just want to be myself. So you're going to get my personality. And if you love it, that's great. And if you don't love it, that's fine too. Like I'm perfectly happy, finishing my career on Oahu and doing whatever here, or trying to be the chief again when Logan, whatever that thing is. But I just decided, hey, look, you're going to get me, you're going to get my personality. And so I think a lot of the questions they asked were, what you would think. They're very similar. Like, for example, they're hiring an administrator. They're hiring a department head who's going to be in charge of hundreds or thousands of people. So what's your concept on discipline? Well, the answer here and the answer there is essentially the same.
Right.
I don't know if more of my personality filtered into those answers, or if, like I said, maybe just my personality meshed better with the people who were looking for a chief on the Big Island.
Yeah.
But either way, I feel like it's the place that I'm supposed to be. There's been a lot of mileposts and signs and things in my life that when I follow the sign and things happen, and they happen in very unpredictable ways, but it ends up being the right thing or the right situation or the right scenario. And, every time I look at how I became the chief on the Big Island, have you ever see that movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Of course.
Right? Where it's, you only see, you're watching the end of the movie, but then it's a flashback to, but how did you know this answer, right? You must be cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Actually, in this little vignette, we explain it. To me, that really meshes with how I think about the world. It's a totality of all my different experiences, plus the right personality, plus the right time, has put me in the place that I'm meant to be.
Yeah, that's great. Listen, I just want to take a quick break. You're listening to Sit Down Hawaii. I'm Josh, and we are interviewing Chief Ben, and it's been awesome. I wanted to take you through how he got to where he's at, because I really believe that some of you might be listening and you either have had a bad altercation with law enforcement, or you don't know what you're called to be doing. And it's really, really clear to me that this is a really good opportunity, that if you want education, you want to make a difference, and that, maybe these are some of the skill sets you should really consider maybe this as a career. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to get down to some of the questions around Big Island and some of the facts, some of the questions that you've asked. Again, go ahead, share, like, comment. See you in a little bit. Hey, hope you're having a good time on the podcast. Wanted to take a quick break to bring today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Sweet Life Tea. It's a tea that helps people get through anxiety. Listen, I have anxiety flying, I have anxiety kind of in a lot of areas, and it was something that was affecting me. And so I found this tea. It has organic, natural, vegan, non-GMO ingredients that when you put them all together, it just helped me relax. So there's things like chamomile, licorice root, lavender, and I felt like I wanted to bring you something that helped me. So if you're struggling with anxiety and you just need something to kind of relax that's organic, go ahead and go to sweetlifetea.com. Put in the code SitDownHawaii for 10% off. Okay, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Hey, welcome back. You're here watching Sit Down Hawaii, and you caught us in the middle of everything. I'm here interviewing Chief Ben and Big Island, and you got to learn a little bit about him. This next segment is about Big Island and what's going on. Do me a favor, like, share, comment, especially if you have somebody in Big Island that send it to them, because this is for them and us. Okay, so let's just jump in. What is the lay of the land with Big Island and maybe crime, and how are things progressing there?
Sure. So we continue to see a lot of property crime. Almost all the property crime, though, when you peel back the layers of the who and the what and the why, leads back to drugs.
Yeah.
The state of Hawaii, and Oahu is no exception. Big Island is no exception. Yeah. We have a huge meth epidemic, and it drives a lot of other social problems.
Yeah.
It drives, people who would park their car at a tourist spot and get out and go check out the turtles, or to, head to the beach, or head into the hotel, and they come back and the car is broken into and the valuables are gone. So that level of crime is everywhere in Hawaii, and the Big Island is no exception. We do have a huge meth problem. Fentanyl is starting to creep in. We look at one of the interesting parts of my job that I did not realize, it was not in the flyer, is that on the neighbor, there's a lot that wasn't in the flyer. On the neighbor islands, Kauai, Maui, and Big Island, the chief of police is also the coroner. So
Whoa.
yes,
Did
cool,
not know
huh?
that.
So and then the police officers then become deputy coroners. Now they don't let me do autopsies or anything. Like we hire a forensic pathologist to do that part of it. But in terms of determining manner and cause and time of death, it's the police chief's ultimate responsibility to make sure that those things happen. Very interesting. Which is, again, a whole nother episode we could do. One of the things that, as the coroner, though, I have access to really good data. So we look at drug overdoses, right? And in terms of what drugs are killing people, And the drug data is a little bit old. It's usually about a year old just because there's always toxicology and things that we're waiting for final results and final answers. But you can look at what drugs are involved in fatal overdoses, and that's a pretty good indicator of what percentage of drugs are being used, right? Certainly for the more serious high-end users or users who are going to end up, unfortunately, passing away. So in 2003, we had 41 people on the Big Island who died of some sort of drug overdose. And this is not like in a hospital setting. This is recreational outside of a healthcare facility.
Wow.
And the majority of those people, the largest drug category, and some people have more than one drug in their system, but the largest drug category by far is methamphetamine. Unfortunately, though, catching up over the past several years is synthetic opioids or fentanyl, right? Fentanyl is the common synthetic opioid. So we have a big drug problem. Most of the drugs, interestingly enough, are not there's not a lot of meth labs. We're not cooking a lot of meth.
Yeah.
We're importing a lot of meth.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that. We talked about it. I thought that it was, I guess my picture is like jungle. There's a lot of space, volcano. There's a lot of space. So I kind of always felt like, okay, that's probably where, and then maybe it's the Breaking Bad in me thinking of like, a couple people doing things. But okay, so it's coming in, not necessarily being made, and like how is that happening?
So two main ways. The first way is parcels. So Postal Service, USPS, UPS, FedEx, people are shipping parcels in. We do screen some of the parcel sorts with the canines, but not all of them, and a lot of that gets missed. We're catching a small percentage, but certainly not all. And then the other big way is passenger carry. So we have one international, even though Hilo is called the Hilo International Airport, at the moment, the only place you can go is Honolulu, right? And then once a day you can go to Kahului, I think. But there's no mainland flights. There's no international flights. Whereas Kona, you can fly in and out of Kona to the mainland, to the West Coast. So what we see is passenger carry, either people carrying meth or fentanyl, whatever kind of drugs on them, on their body, adhered, taped to their body, and then in their carry-ons. So we see a lot of drugs that we're catching coming in through those kind of methods, as opposed to us growing or formulating or cooking up stuff.
Wow. So I guess that's the kind of thought that I had, right? Was like there's probably a decent amount of drugs there. That's what you hear, and it's. You talked about, I think, was it 2003 with 40-some deaths? What does that kind of look like now?
Sorry, 2023.
23.
Yeah,
oh,
23.
okay, got you. Okay, I was thinking, man, that's like 20 years. Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
sorry.
That's a lot. And so if you were to go through most of the arrests being made, what would be the percentage you think is drug related?
Arresting people for drugs is probably 25 to 30%. Arresting people for other crimes that are tied back to drugs, aside from abuse and DUI, it's probably closer to 90%.
Wow.
And then the rest of what's left is people being arrested for impaired driving, traffic warrants, stuff like that happens everywhere. And then the like domestic violence is of course always a thing.
That's a lot of people. That's crazy. So what in your opinion, and what does that look like? How do we curve that? What can we do to do that?
So when you're trying to tackle drug use, right, and drug possession or drug distribution, it's complicated because at the end of this sequence of events, you're dealing with a person, and that person has some sort of addiction, right? There's some sort of physical need that for whatever reason they need this substance, or they think they need, which essentially is they need this substance to continue to survive. So to continue to target end drug users, that people are buying drugs or possessing drugs in small amounts. If we were to try to focus our efforts there, that's where law enforcement is traditionally, trying to get the guy with the ice pipe or the person with the dime bag of whatever. Right. We might be able to impact that one individual. We might even be able to get that one individual, even if it's not through the criminal justice system, into some sort of drug treatment or rehabilitation that could change the outcome and stop the demand.
Right.
But what we've been doing that, of course, that's what everybody does. That's what all the department's doing. What we're doing at the moment is we just realigned our vice section. So we have Area 1, which is East Hawaii, and Area 2, which is West Hawaii. Up to now, we've had one lieutenant in each side and a bunch of detectives, and their job was spent to investigate drug trafficking, right? Targeting higher level people up the food chain in the drug trafficking organizations. But they've been doing it kind of in one silo on one side of the island and one silo on the other side of the island. When I got to the Big Island and I looked at like the structure and how things were organized, it struck me as very odd that the only person in the chain of command between East Hawaii and West Hawaii vice sections was me, the chief. Wow. There was no one else, and the chief doesn't need to be running drug operations. So one of the things we've been able to do is kind of realign those two vice sections. So now we have one vice section, which was February 1st, that kicked off. So it's a very, very new, very recent development for us. And we're going to start targeting larger importation, drug trafficking organizations, as opposed to targeting end users. At the same time, we're working with the prosecutors, and we're hoping to get to work with the judiciary down the line in the next couple of months about taking end-level drug users who are being arrested for drug possession offenses, not distribution, not distribution weight or distribution packaging, but people who are addicted to drugs, who are buying drugs and committing crimes to feed their drug habit, and seeing if there aren't ways we can divert them away from the criminal justice system. Sitting in HCCC is not a good place. It's overcrowded to begin with. The judges know it. Nobody gets held on bail. People get arrested. They go to the cell block. They sit there for 24 to 48 hours. Now they start to have some withdrawal signs and symptoms, and they get even more anxious and nervous. And then they go to court, and the judges let them go because there's no place to put them. And so now they're back on the street, and we see a cycle of reoffense. If there's a way we can divert people away from that and into like very immediate short-term rehabilitation and support and connecting back with family and getting services. Sometimes it's as simple as helping somebody get a state ID or a driver's license that's been lost or stolen from them that they can't use to collect their benefits, and that's why they don't have a place to live. And so it's a cycle.
And you've seen that.
All the time. So if we can divert people away from that and keep them out of the criminal justice system, that's a very non-traditional policing approach. But if we can eliminate the demand and we can help people who are suffering the most from these drug trafficking organizations, I feel like that's part of our role as a police department. Maybe not a law enforcement department, but a police department to help that segment of the community.
We kind of talked about this, and this might be a good point. As you see the police department, and you just kind of said law enforcement side, and that's just a portion of what you do, right? And then we talked about a community and like how you approach it is very unique. And I kind of bring up growing up, right? I grew up and there's police officers everywhere, and I had really good relationships with them, right? They did great. They're in the schooling system. I remember I'd be running for wrestling and I would see them running. Like it just felt very connected. And I think some sort of approach where we can not just put people in prisons might be something, and I again, you don't have all the answers, but we've got to get creative here, because we are being overrun, and there seems to be a very common thing, even in the medical field. In our past podcast, we were talking about that, where it's just a revolving door. There's a lot of people homeless, and they go into hospitals, they get treatment, and they're right back out, and they don't have a place to go. So it does seem like there's a second step or something else that could happen that might help facilitate people getting help. Okay, that's really interesting. So when we talk about drugs, and I had this thought in my mind, Big Island meth. I also thought, okay, they're cooking. There's a lot of making, but that doesn't seem to be true. What else is going on in Big Island that you're seeing? Are we seeing things get better? Like what are some of the positives that we think that is happening?
I'm very cautious to use the word better, because one of the problems that we have on the Big Island is it's a result of our geography. Okay, so we have certain areas of the police department, certain areas of the island that it's very difficult for us to access in a timely manner. And so what happens is, residents might call the police in portions of Puna or Ocean View, and 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes goes by and they don't see us come, or, the officer's still on the way because they're coming from a long distance away, or it's a lower priority case, and they give up, right? The perception is, well, I called, but they never came.
Wow.
So what happens if you call the police and they don't come, and you call again and they don't come, and you call again and they don't come? Are you going to call the fourth time or the fifth time?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? Yeah. Unless someone is bleeding or dying or has a gun. Right. You're probably going to stop calling. So I'm very cautious. If you look at, year to year, 22 to 23 to 24, crime statistics, violent crime is leveling off or is slightly down. We've done a really good job at clearing a really large percentage of those cases, but I'm real cautious to not, take the victory lap and say mission accomplished, we're solving crime, because I don't know how much of that is because people have just stopped calling us, which to me, as a police chief, is like, that's the worst possible alternative, because now I don't even know. Right. So how do I get that feedback? How do I get that information from the community? One of the ways, and it's just coincidental timing right now, for the month of February, we're doing a community satisfaction survey. We're asking people, and we're not asking people who support us, although that's great. We're not asking people who are, anti-police, although that's great too. We want everybody in the community to have an opportunity. Visit our website, hawaiipolice.gov. There's a link there. Take the survey. It's anonymous. And then we've committed that whatever that feedback is, we're going to share it back. So we need a month or two to kind of analyze it and take a look at it and strategize. And then we're going to share that feedback back with the community. And what I hope that does is it builds trust. And it kind of sheds light on things that might not be on my radar as the chief, or even on the beat officer in a certain area, on their radar as a problem in a specific area of the community. But allowing this mechanism for anonymous feedback, and we're kind of trying to get it all done in 1 month, hopefully gives us an opportunity to shed light on what the additional areas of opportunities are.
I want you to repeat that. So listen up one more time. What's the website?
Yeah, so if you visit our website, it's www.hawaiipolice.gov. It's our brand new website. We launched that a couple months ago. And then right at the very top and on every single page, there's a link to our community satisfaction survey. So 2025 community satisfaction survey. It'll take you maybe 5 minutes. If you want to add more comments, maybe it'll take you a little bit longer. Don't do it while you're driving on your cell phone, but it's completely anonymous. We don't keep track of who submitted it. We ask questions like, what your zip code is, how long you've lived on the Big Island, or if you're a visitor, just so that we can kind of hone in sometimes a little bit more on the individual comments and find those areas for operational efficiency improvement. But yeah, we're asking the community and anybody who has interacted with an officer or a civilian in the police department, or who visits or lives on the Big Island, to complete this community survey. And then when we're done, we're going to share the results back, so you can see along with us how everybody feels.
That's huge. That's huge. I think you should take a second and do that. In Hawaii, we like to complain. We like to talk about a lot of things. This is your chance to put in your notes. I happen to know that you wanted to be audited. So we kind of talked about it. We talked about wanting to be self-audited, and let's talk about that real quick, because I think transparency is huge. Yeah,
absolutely. That's one of the cornerstones of modern policing, is the ability to share with people information that. Here's at a very basic level. If you could come to the front door of the station and ask for a certain crime data, and if the law allows me to give it to you, and I would have given it to you anyway, why do I have to wait for you to come in to share it with you?
That's good.
So anything like that you could have access to, if I can find a way to use, especially if we can use technology, to share it with you faster, quicker, before you even think to ask, I think that goes a long way. So one of the things we did was, when we redesigned and relaunched our website in November, there's a crime map on there now. So you can click and zoom in, zoom out, set different date parameters, and you can see whether there are crimes being again, it's only what's reported, but what's reported to us in any given time frame, on weekends, this beat, that beat, whatever. And also on the website now, in terms of transparency, we publish a booking log. So if you are arrested and you're charged within the last 24 to 48 hours, your name gets put on that a booking log that goes on our website. They're not up there. You can't search it historically 3 months ago, last Tuesday, but it's the last couple days. And then one of the other things we wanted to do was we wanted to, it didn't start as a transparency piece, but it kind of ended as a transparency piece. We wanted to take a look at, in terms of self-improvement, right? What kind of experience are people having in different parts of the department? And what we realized is we have a lot of data. Every time you call 911, and you're talking to one of the call takers or dispatchers, they're typing information into a computer. So we know where you're calling from. We know what time you called. We know what area you're calling about. We know the nature of your call. And then as officers get dispatched, we know what time they get sent. We know, because they tell us when they get there, what time they arrived. So if you do some math with that data, you can find out how long it takes from the time the call comes in to the time the officers respond. So response time.
Right.
okay, so we're cops, and I told you earlier, GED. Yeah, GED for our job. So that kind of statistical analysis is not always in our wheelhouse of things to do, right? So we asked for the county auditor to kind of help us to take a look at a couple different areas, but response times was kind of the primary one. And he and his team kind of put together this report, which is also available on our website, that shows, an average response time. So you can look at different districts and what the average response time is, and or different beats or different day parts or times a day or days of the week, whatever. But the answer of what that average response time to us turned into a transparency piece and a kind of next steps piece. So what we found is that for priority 1 cases, so these are things like, I need the police here now. Someone is injured.
Wow.
There's a suspect here now. Maybe there's a car crash and the cars are blocking traffic. Someone's injured. That's priority 1. Priority 2 would be like, okay, there's a car crash, but nobody's injured and they're on the side. Or, I just came home. I think someone broke into my house, but I know they're not here now. I checked already. Yeah. Or 7-Eleven calls and says there was a shoplifting 15 minutes ago. We just need to report this. Priority 2. Okay, so priority 1, we need the police. These are our most important calls to get to in a timely manner. I already gave you the answer. I would beforehand, or I would ask you to guess, and I don't think you would have gotten it. Yeah. We're averaging over 18 minutes for priority 1, and that's average now. So in downtown Hilo, that number is much lower because the station is there and there's lots of officers. But in some of these rural districts and sections of these rural districts, the average response time for priority 1 calls 25, 30 minutes. That's not cool, right?
Yeah.
That's I need help right now. Okay, we'll see you in a half an hour.
Man.
That's preposterous, right? It really is. So that turned into a transparency piece to share that information back. And it does help to explain a lot of why I get comments from the community. Hey, I keep calling, you guys never come.
Yeah.
It's probably that you gave up looking for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
So how do we impact that, right? How do I, as the chief, adjust the structure? Essentially with the geography, it boils down to needing more officers in certain areas. That's it. That's the end of the analysis. I have, for example, we talked a little bit about Puna earlier. So Puna, if you're familiar with the Big Island, it's kind of in the southeast corner of the Big Island. It's everything south of Hilo all the way up to Volcano. And the roads there are kind of shaped like an L. You can go from Volcano down to Ke'au, and then you can go from Ke'au out to Pahoa, and then towards Kalapana. There's no way to get from Volcano to Pahoa besides going all the way down to Ke'au and turning right and going all the way out to Pahoa. So that district is approximately the size of Oahu, right? And in that district, on any given day, in a good day, I have 8 officers. On Oahu, you probably have between 90 and 120 officers. Wow. So I've got 4 working on the top side from Volcano to Ke'au, and I got 4 on the bottom side from Ke'au to Pahoa. So when something happens in Volcano and the officers from Pahoa have to come over to Ke'au, then there's 1 or 2 officers left in Pahoa, which means when something happens, it's just going to take a while. So what we wanted was a snapshot. We wanted a snapshot of data so that we could not only see, hey, what happens when we fill all the positions? When we get up to 100% and all the positions are full, how much did we impact that response time? That's one step. To me, the next step is, okay, how do we think a little bit further into the future? As we get closer to 100%, how do we have positions ready so that I can add 5 more officers in Pahoa or 5 more officers in Ke'au or 5 more officers in Ocean View? Because realistically, you need 5 people, 5 living, breathing human beings to cover one beat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with vacations, holidays, etc. So we add in sections of 5. So we've asked the council for funding and help us create positions in these rural areas. We'll see. I asked for a lot. We'll see if I get, what the support is. But that's like I said, it started out as hey, let's look at what we're doing and see how we can improve. And it turned into a transparency piece because it was like, hey, we got to share this. It's information. If you came and asked me, I would give you. So why not publicize it? Tell people what it is, why it is the way it is. And more importantly, here's what we're doing to address it. And here are the steps forward.
Yeah. So if you're out in one of those communities and you've called and no one showed up, basically we're saying that we might not have enough people and it takes a while, and we're working on that problem right now.
And please don't stop calling, because if you do,
that's important.
Then we don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, because you can only use the analytics of what has been called. Yeah, that's a good point. So if you live out there, call. Chief said to call. I don't know if that's good.
If you need our help, I want you to call. Absolutely, 100%.
That's really good. I want to just go through a few questions. So, if you're listening to Sit Down Hawaii, we always ask questions, and I like to ask the questions. some of these might sound outlandish, some of them might be right on point, but there was a question about human trafficking and Big Island. And I wasn't really sure. I don't know if that's something that's happening, child sex trafficking. There's a lot of stuff that, I guess was being said. What's the truth behind that? What is that all about? Yeah.
So again, I would like to take a victory lap and tell you it doesn't exist. But I can't because I don't know. What I can tell you is that we don't have any active human trafficking investigations, which tells me that we don't have any reports that we can substantiate or leads to look into things that could uncover this. One of the things about human trafficking that's, it's insidious is that it's very hidden.
Yeah.
All right. Even the victims of human trafficking, people who are being trafficked, may or may not even see themselves as victims and may be so caught up in the cycle of abuse that they're worried about what's going to happen to them or their loved ones if they try to get help. So it's kind of a three-prong approach, right? Number one, if people know things about it, we need them to tell us so that we can use our investigative powers to look into it. And then from there, it becomes a two-prong. Is it a situation where we, as putting the law enforcement hat back on, right? Putting my uniform and hat back on, I would love to tell you that we're going to investigate people and arrest them and prosecute them and keep them from harming other people. And that's fabulous if we can do that. But if we can't do that, but we can at least take people who are involved as human trafficking victims and help them to get out of the situation, then even if that doesn't lead to prosecution or it doesn't lead to an arrest, then we've at least saved one or two or three people. If we can help to get people, out of situations where they need help and get them support and get them reunited with family members on Oahu or Hawaii or mainland or whatever, I see that as one of our responsibilities, not just to, we need to have an investigation and you need to swear out an affidavit and we need to press charges and we need you to come back. I mean, those are all great things and there are benefits to all those, but if we can't get that far, we need to at least invest in that piece of helping people out of the cycle. But even that we don't know about unless we get people to tell us.
So just from what we know, from what you're saying, we don't know of any of that happening. It's not a massive problem, at least from the way that you've seen it. Nothing has been reported. And if you are seeing that and you are hearing that, say something so we can do something. Another question around, and this is probably just because of the temperature of where we're at in Hawaii and the United States, but immigration. There's been a pretty strong, I think, immigrant population coming in. And this question had to do with a lot of the construction. And how do you see that playing out in Big Island? Is there anything around that?
Sure. So, our role as a local county-run police department, that's our job, is to help people in the community to solve problems, to prevent and solve crimes on the local level. We're not involved in immigration policy. Right. But that being said, I think it's important that the people in the community understand what to expect from us, right? Because there's a lot of fear because there's a lot of unknown and because there hasn't been a lot of communication about what the plan is. And that's kind of what we're talking about before, right? So it's certainly important to set the tone of what people should expect from us on the Big Island. And that is this. We do not have any officers who are empowered to enforce immigration laws. There are some departments on the mainland who have this 287G designation where officers can do that. That doesn't happen in Hawaii. Hawaii Police Department doesn't have any 287G designated employees. We do have some officers who are what are called task force officers. So we have some embedded with the FBI and with Homeland Security and with ATF and the U.S. Marshals, and that's so that we can use federal resources when we're going after violent criminals, or we're using federal resources when we're going after drug trafficking organizations. But all of those TFOs, those task force officers, are specifically excluded. They're prohibited from enforcing immigration policy. So enforcing immigration policy is not something that you should expect from the Hawaii Police Department. I know, I almost said I think, but I know there are two Homeland Security investigation officers or agents that work on the Big Island. They've worked there forever. They actually have an office right next to our vice office in Hilo. And that's what they're there for. That's what they've historically helped us out with, was infiltrating federal large-scale drug trafficking organizations. And even if If we were to develop some sort of, human trafficking case, the federal statutes on that is much stronger. So we probably would use their help to go that way with those kind of cases.
Yeah.
So I can't control them. I don't know what they're doing. I know there's only 2 of them. The expectation you should have of the Hawaii Police Department is no different than before the inauguration or with the last administration. We don't get involved in immigration enforcement or immigration policy. I would hope that if you have specific concerns about, or you see something that you think might seem a little odd, to let us know. We had a case that kind of caught fire a little bit, social media on the Big Island. There was a picture that someone had of a Ross parking lot and a Customs and Border Protection SUV, which I don't think that SUV was even on the Big Island, but all it takes is one person to add in there, hey, and I talked to so-and-so, and they said they saw, three Hispanics being hassled at fill-in-blank location.
Right.
So we were able to real quickly try to kind of diffuse that and say, no, look, this picture is being used all across the nation, and it's not true. But until people bring those things to our attention and help us to identify them so that we can respond and get the truth out there, we're kind of powerless to stop the wildfire of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I got maybe just 2 personal thoughts. Here in Oahu, we are seeing a pretty heavy rise in like ghost guns or these 3D printing guns. And it's a pretty big worry in our schools. Are you seeing any of that in Big Island? Has that hit any of the schools there? Any thoughts around that?
Not really in terms of ghost guns or firearms in school. The Big Island has a little bit of a different relationship, I think, with firearms than Oahu, having lived here for a long time and having lived there not nearly as long, but having a different perspective. I think there are a lot more, definitely per capita firearms registered owners and people who have signed up for and completed the concealed carry permit process per capita. I would venture to guess that we, outpace all the islands, maybe even combined. And that's, part of that has to do with the lifestyle on the Big Island, right? There's a lot of hunting, there's a lot of fishing, there's a lot of people who live on farms and ranches, and just the lifestyle is very, very rural as opposed to here, which is very urban. So we haven't seen firearms cases at school. One of the cool things, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, and we kind of got off on another tangent, but one of the things that I love about our department is that in several of the middle schools, intermediate schools, we actually have officers who are assigned to the intermediate school. And they're not there to, enforce the law or whatever. They're there to build relationships. So we have they're school resource officers. So they teach DARE. They, organize a DARE day. They're there in the morning when parents are dropping kids off at school. Awesome. They're there in the afternoon helping, to get people out of the parking lot safely. And they're there walking around campus with a school ID and a school radio. And that's their job. That's their full-time job is to be in those schools. So that's kind of another cool, could we do it on Oahu? I don't even know. The demand is so large and it's just so different. But the rural aspect of the Big Island lends itself to us being able to put officers at schools and to be able to, account for the fact that that's a person's full-time job. And what does it do? Yes, there's a deterrent effect that keeps things like guns and drugs out of school, which is great. Right. But there's also that there's that role model, right? Like you said, growing up, you at a certain high school, you knew Officer so-and-so and his brother and because you saw him on campus. And so that sets an expectation of, I think, what the community can reasonably expect from us in terms of community satisfaction and community relations. And just the fact that, like we've been saying repeatedly, cops are human beings. We put our shoes on, pants on, whatever we put on, one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
Awesome. Okay, one fun question. Well, is there anything different in, being a cop in Big Island? Like, they say what Oahu or I guess Hawaii cops is manapuas. What's the thing in Big Island? Is there something that's like malasadas from someplace? Or
I don't know. I sit in my office all day. I don't. Are you trying to get me in trouble here?
No,
what are we doing,
Josh?
Josh?
A loaded question.
No,
out of all the questions, this is probably the one that matters.
The food. Okay, so the food on the Big Island, we have some really, really great food places. They all close at 8 or 9 o'clock, and then the traffic lights dim, and then the sidewalks roll up. It's exactly like you see in the movies. There's nothing to eat aside from fast food after 9. So, we don't have. There's not a lot of dim sum. There's not a lot of malasadas and pork hash and manapua there. There are a couple, but it's just different.
It's different, that's for sure. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. I want to just give you a second. Is there anything you want to say to everyone in Big Island, or is there any thoughts coming from your mind? I'm just very thankful that you're here. And, if you're listening to this, I definitely think that Big Island has just even better days ahead. Been very genuine, very honest, very transparent. And I think for me, the big lesson here is if you see something, say something. If we look at our law enforcement as part of our community, as human beings doing the best that they can, and we as citizens are a part of that and just doing what we can, we could hopefully bring a safer Hawaii. But anything in?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Awesome. I think that, if there's one thing that I wanted to get out to the Big Island community and community on Oahu, in Hawaii, across the nation, whoever's watching, is that, police officers we've chosen a certain career. We have a certain job. We go to work at a certain place, just like you. It may or may not be the same place as you, but we live in the community. And certainly that's on the Big Island, turned up to the next degree. Everybody, I think, on the Big Island, I'm pretty convinced, is if they don't know you, they know somebody who knows you. And that's, on Oahu, there's like 3 or 4 degrees of separation. On the Big Island, it's guaranteed it's 1 or 2 at the most. So, the officers there and the people who work in our department we're in the community. We're part of the community. We coach your kids in sports. We go to church with you. We're in line in front of you or behind you at KTA, the shopping center. We just want a safe community that trusts the department to help us get our goals accomplished and to make the Big Island as safe a place as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, thank you so much for listening. We're Sit Down Hawaii. I'm Josh Duhilansad, your host. Again, like, share, comment. Do me a favor. Go on the website. Make sure you fill out your response. And another shout out. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a career, I think this is a very good option with good opportunities to helping people, getting a good education and making a difference. But until then, take care. Aloha.